Oh, baby, look at your calendar. The Iowa caucuses are just 3 weeks away, and there has been yet another shakeup in the Ron DeSantis campaign. Never Back Down, the main super PAC that has been supporting him, has canceled its TV advertising spots in Iowa and New Hampshire, two really important states. In a statement, it says a different super PAC backing DeSantis will focus on TV ad spending, while Never Back Down focuses its efforts on field operations. With me tonight to discuss, former Republican Congressman David Jolly of Florida and Cordell Belcher, Democratic strategist and pollster. David, what does this reorg tell you? And side note, number one reason I invited you on tonight was you have the best Christmas trees of anyone I've ever seen. And now you've hit me with a home office. So I'm going to start with disappointing.
We got no data in our mountain house. Look, we're very fortunate to have a mountain house, but at times there's zero data. The two Christmas trees are still there, but we can't share them with the world. But thank you, Stephanie. What are we witnessing? So Ron DeSantis' campaign will tell you that, oh, just another super PAC's coming in. Hogwash. What we are witnessing is the complete and utter collapse of a candidate who started measuring the drapes in the Oval Office a little too early. Recall just a year ago, he won the governorship by 19 points in Florida, something nobody could have anticipated. His opening ad was on the eighth day God created Ron DeSantis. His arrogance, his retail politics were terrible. And what's ended up happening is a complete collapse, really a historic collapse of a campaign that thought it was going to the White House. Ron DeSantis started this Republican primary on third base, and he stole second. And that's why we're all talking about Nikki Haley and the opportunity she has to play second to Donald Trump.
Cornell, one of the things that fueled Joe Biden's win last time was people voting against Donald Trump. Does that still apply for 2024?
Well, I certainly think that there's opportunity for it. And Stephanie, I want to apologize because I'm still at the office. I don't have any Christmas decorations.
That's okay. You're wearing a superb red turtleneck with Trump's a Christmas tree, right? So you've already won. David has disappointed me so dearly. Not even a Christmas tie. You've won by a mile. So continue.
Well, you know, part of the ability sort of to mobilize and energize voters last time around really was because of Donald Trump and the threat that Donald Trump was and the threat that voters saw him. Look, I love Joe Biden, but a lot of that Obama continuum, those younger voters, those voters of color who were key and instrumental to powering Democrats to a majority in 2008 and 2012. They really got behind Joe Biden because they saw him as the candidate who was best able to beat the guy who they thought was, in fact, an existential threat, and that was Donald Trump. Now, at some point, I do think it is a pivot. Now, I think Joe Biden has a lot of accomplishments that he has to talk about. But in the end, Stephanie, I do think it's going to be a pivot where it's a choice, right? It's a choice between Joe Biden or the candidate who, again, is an existential threat, talking about invoking the Insurgents Act, talking about rounding up his enemies in camps. I still think there's a lot of fodder for the team Biden to use around what a threat to your communities a second term, Trump term would be.
David, here's a toothache in this, though. Some Democratic voters, especially young ones who did vote for Joe Biden last time around, are frustrated. They have said he hasn't done enough on things they care about, like climate, student debt, reproductive rights. But here's the thing. Joe Biden would do more. It's Republicans stopping it. So why would he lose support for what Republicans are blocking?
Yeah, well, and I'm not sure he will lose that support come Election Day. As Joe Biden likes to say, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. That is true in election politics. It's about a contrast between the candidates. And I think while Joe Biden has to suggest and affirm he is protecting democracy, the reason he is protecting democracy is to provide for an economy for all people, for education and access to health care, for the protection of your own rights and your own voting rights. All of those things occur only when we have a healthy democracy. And so I think the opportunity for Joe Biden is really becoming clear here. Yes, he has to draw a contrast with the authoritarian, anti-democratic posture of Donald Trump. But what voters really want to know about is, what are you doing for me lately? Don't lie to me about inflation. Don't lie to me about issues. Tell me you're going to work for me, because I know Donald Trump won't. At the end of the day, I think Joe Biden makes a very convincing case, even for skeptical voters today, come next November.
All right, Cornel, let's say January 1st, Joe Biden says, Cornel, you and your red turtleneck, come on down to the Oval Office and give me some advice. What is your advice for his campaign next year?
My advice would be this: we have to start engaging those younger voters. Look, he won younger voters by plus 30 points. And if you look underneath the horse race numbers and all these polls, what you see is where he's most off of his 2020 performance are actually with younger voters, right? These younger voters, a diverse set of voters. And to the point, they are frustrated and they're disillusioned by a lot about politics. But I think, and I'm not surprised by this, because I also, in 2011 going into 2012 when I was working for Obama, these young voters are also frustrated that change wasn't happening quick enough. I think Joe Biden has a good story to tell them about what he's been fighting for around climate change, what he's been fighting for around reproductive health, what he's been fighting for, like $100 billion in student loan debt he's tried to wipe away. And today, you know what he did today? He, put forth an order to around marijuana sentencing, right? That is really impactful to a lot of young voters, especially a lot of young voters of color. I think he has a good story to tell, but he's got to start telling it, and he can't wait for 2 or 3 months out. He's got to start telling that story right now, and he's got to spend more resources and time chasing young voters and in the spaces where young voters are than ever before. And he's also got to let some of his surrogates do the work, right? It can't just be Joe Biden, but there's a lot of young guns, I think, in the Democratic Party who don't get enough shine. He's got to move some of them to the forefront, including the vice president. I think needs to be a little bit more out there in front and taking this case to this younger generation of voters.